The state of CSS results are in for 2020. If you don't know about what the state of CSS is, or this survey, it's a survey where they look at people's understanding of CSS and what they're familiar with, how they see themselves in terms of the relationship with CSS. Do they like it? What properties do they know about? What things are growing? The state of different things with it? What frameworks are popular? What frameworks are growing or not growing? And a whole bunch of other really cool things. They look at a whole bunch of properties and people's awareness of them. It's a really cool survey. I did it in 2019. I did it again in 2020, and the results have just come in. I was going to go through the results anyway, and I thought, maybe it would be fun to go through it with you as well. So this is what this video is all about. We're going to dive into the results, see if they mean anything, what we can glean from them, if there's things that we can sort of see positive changes coming, or there are things that maybe aren't good. And all of that. It should be pretty interesting, so let's go and jump into it. So for this, I'm going to zoom in a little bit just to make it a bit easier for you guys to see what we're looking at. And I'm going to skip this first part right here where it just introduces it, but I would strongly recommend that you actually go and check it out to learn more about this and what their point was and everything. I'm very, very tempted to buy this t-shirt of theirs because it is cool. So you might see me rocking this not too distant future. So let's jump into the survey itself and what they found. So they actually had over 11,000 participants, which is really, really cool. It's a nice big sample size, which is good. And it was actually in multiple languages, which I think is always good because we get the bigger picture of everything. And so we look here and we can see the one thing is most people were in the States. 20% of respondents were in the States. So that will slightly skew things a little bit probably. But you can see that there was, how many were in Canada? Almost 4%. Wow. For our population, I'd say that's not too bad. A lot in the UK as well, or 7% in the UK. So yeah, Canada representing there. 320 to, we had half as many people in Canada, even though we have a tiny population over here. So that's cool. Russia actually with quite a bit as well. So, but a little bit of skewage, towards certain areas, and, almost nothing in China and Japan and stuff like that. So there is a bit of a skew there, and most people were filling it out in English. We got some annual salary that I'm not going to stress too much about. We get down to the years of experience. So there is a nice breakdown of years of experience, and I think a good thing here is actually a lot of the people are more experienced. Not many people with one, but I think that's a fairly nice breakdown of years of experience to get different points of view on things and how people feel about front-end development. How big the company is, doesn't matter. How they found out doesn't matter. Here's one these two do matter and are very important, and important about the industry at large, where it's almost entirely male and almost entirely white. So this is just like, the white bros answering this. I was one of those white guys that did too. And people often go like, I've posted about this in the past, and people have said things like, does it really matter? That's just what the industry is. And that's just what to expect. And the issue is this is what the industry is, because what happens is it's less welcoming to people that aren't white guys. It's harder for them to feel included when nobody, they don't see themselves fitting in. But it also leads to a very narrow point of view. So because there's a narrower point, white males have a certain experience in life in general. And that will be different for somebody who's a different skin color or who's a woman, right? Your experiences are different, and you bring different things to the table, and you bring different points of view to the table. So a lot of the idea about inclusion and trying to get as many people involved, it's not about saying that, it just so happens that white guys like front-end development. It's that limits front-end development because we're not getting the points of view of people who have lived other experiences and who have different experiences. And I think that's a really important thing, that we should encourage diversity as much as possible to build better products, period. You're going to be building better things, building better websites, creating technology maybe in ways you didn't think of because you're getting points of view of different people. So I do think that the lack of diversity in web development in general is an issue. Job titles, I'm not too worried about. This one actually surprised me that 61% of people said they were experts, and then you had 22% at intermediate. So that I actually found interesting. I would have expected a lot more in the intermediate to advanced. I guess part of that does come down over here to the wherever it was with the years of experience. There was a lot of people with a lot of experience. So that I guess could have played into this a little bit. Because that is with CSS, and in JavaScript too, there was a large part, but actually most people who filled this out were seeing themselves as more proficient with CSS than JavaScript. Now that might also be because it was the state of CSS, so people that are not really interested in CSS might not have answered it as much as other things. So that might have played into it as well. Backend proficiency, this is, even here I'm surprised that so many people saying advanced there, to be honest. I don't think you're an expert at CSS, an expert at JavaScript, and advanced at backend. My personal point, if you're an expert in something, you're probably not an expert in 3 things. So just my point of view, I guess. Maybe if you've been doing it for 30 years, that's another story. So let's go to the next, which is features. And this is one I'm really interested in. Let's check it out. So the idea with these circles is the circle in the middle. So here prefers reduced motion. The circle on the outside is how many people know about it. And the circle on the inside is how many people have actually used it. And a few things here that you'd expect, like Flexbox. Pretty much everyone has used it and everybody knows about it. Whereas say you go into here where the aspect ratio, and this one actually I'm like 2,500 people have used it because it's not really working yet. So I was surprised to see how many people said they used it on that one. Subgrid, a lot of people know about it. Nobody's really been using it yet. That's sort of to be expected. I did think here, object fit, I'm glad to see that's doing pretty well. People are actually using things like object fit. Calc doesn't surprise me very much. Variables are really high, which is really good. Nice to see that. Supports is getting there, so supports is good. It hopefully starts growing a little bit, but that is good. What else do we have here? Animations transformed. This sort of makes sense to me. Not everyone's doing 3D stuff, so they're not really using perspective. And interactions, sort of a general rough breakdown that you'd sort of expect there, I think. Interesting with shapes, I think I don't remember what I answered for that one, but I do know that I got it wrong on what shapes actually was and what they were referring to. So even like masking, I guess that makes sense. Blend modes. You see, what I'm seeing here is people are doing a lot of, like, everybody's using layouts, and this is sort of like the common things that you would expect to see a lot of. Actually, the grid's really high. That's cool. Keep on using grid, everybody. That's awesome. And those who aren't, use it. Logical properties, I've just started using it, so I'm getting into that. Flexbox, I think, is like the biggest out of everything, right? The size of the circle also has a big impact on it. So the smaller the circle, the less people even knew about it. So here, like color gamut, nobody really even knows about it to begin with. And then out of those people, very few are actually using it. But yeah, interesting to see the breakdown there. Of all the CSS features mentioned in the survey, how many did respondents know about? So it's kind of funny that like we're sort of falling, it's a nice little bell curve there with most people falling into the 50 to 60 and 60 to 70, but also most people saying they're experts. Make of that what you will. Let's go check out and get a bit more. CSS Grid excels in dividing a page. So look at that, people, so this was their 2020 results versus their 2019. So more people have heard about it, but more importantly to me is a lot more people are starting to use Grid, which is really, really good. That's good to see. Subgrid, it's the first time. A lot of people have never heard of Subgrid. That's my mission, is to get people to know about Subgrid, because I need people wanting Subgrid to become a thing. Because right now with only Firefox supporting it, it's harder to push, and we can't really use it for anything yet. And if I can get people excited about it by showing it off and showing how cool it could be, as well as other people, and if you're listening to this and you don't know what it is, go find out, try it out. Again, you need Firefox to use it. But I think if if we can get noise and people talking about it, it might help the other browsers get on board with it. Because this is the next thing I'm super excited about with CSS. I think from a layout perspective, this is going to be potentially a bigger game changer than Grid itself was. It's super awesome. It just takes Subgrid to it takes Grid itself to the next level. And now that I've used Subgrid, I get annoyed when I use Grid that I can't do certain things with it. Flexbox, as you'd expect, pretty much everyone is using it. I feel sad for this 3% who say they know what it is, but they haven't used it and never heard of it. I don't know. You have to be using Flexbox these days, come on. Multi-column layout. Interesting that more people have said that they don't know what it is. So more people are using it, but there's more people saying they've never heard of it. This is just display columns, right? So display columns and then columns 3 or something like that. I get that a lot of, it makes sense, this breakdown here, just because you might not fall into a situation where you need columns. But Columns are cool. Every now and then they give a really good use case. Writing modes, yeah, that doesn't surprise me too much. Exclusions. I'm actually, by exclusions, do they mean like the not selector? Or do they mean something else? I'm not even sure. And I'm wondering if that's actually why CSS exclusions. I mean, I have no idea what exclusions are, and by the looks of it, we never will, because it died with Internet Explorer. Exclusions were going to let us do stuff like that. That's kind of interesting. I've never used or heard of exclusions. I'm surprised this number's gone up for both, if this is what we're even talking about. I don't know. Position sticky, I'm really surprised that not more people are using it. Logical properties. CSS logical properties is CSS module including logical. So this is like your inline, margin inline or margin block or padding inline padding block. Which means it changes based on the reading, like is it a left to right or a right to left language, or even there's vertical languages. Really, really cool. Just started using them. This is a shame that not enough people know about it. Browser support's starting to get there, so I definitely think it's worth checking out. I'm probably gonna have some videos on that actually, because it's really, really good stuff. Here, 22.4% of people have said that they've used aspect ratio. CSS property sets a preferred, but it doesn't, we can't do it yet. So I don't get how so many people, like, let's go check this out. Can I use? We can't use aspect ratio yet. I mean, this is a lot of people thinking about something else, I think, because there's no way 22.4 people are using things that are locked behind a flag unless they're just counting. Where it does work is, I think, I'm going to mix it up. I think Chrome and Firefox actually are both doing it, maybe even Safari, where does this even say what it's doing? Yeah, Firefox implement, it's doing it, and it's only Firefox doing it? Maybe it's only Firefox right now. But it's where if you set a width and a height on an image, or which is a replaced element, it'll also work on an iframe. It will actually calculate the width and height, or the aspect ratio of it, and apply that. So if the page is being, if you're shrinking or growing it, it's not so worried about the set dimensions you put on it, but it's going to take the aspect ratio of that. So say the image is really slow to load, it's going to have that empty space already. It's not taking the dimensions you put on it, it's taking the aspect ratio based on the layout. It's going to be really cool once we can use it, but there's no way. People think it's something else or something. It's a really cool property. I'm really looking forward to it, because especially with object fit and stuff with images, it's going to be great. But yeah. Content visibility. Okay, I mean, let's go look at the next one, shapes. So this is level, I just want to, so yeah, this is where I thought it was something completely different. When they were talking about shapes, and this is where I think there's just like a missing level of understanding on what it is. Shapes is stuff like if you're doing, what's it called? Not a clip path, but oh, okay. So actually, now that I'm looking at this, CSS exclusions is something else than I was just looking at when I Googled it before. But yeah, shape outside. So it's to do with masking and exclusions. So if you're using shape outside, but then you can use the exclusion, which I just opened here, and the exclusions. Oh no, that is the one I was looking at. So exclusions aren't being used, but it's sort of the same, falling into the same thing. I mean, in a way, shape outside. Maybe that's why people are saying they know exclusions, because they're thinking of it as shape outside. That's a possible thing. But here, like, I wasn't thinking shape outside when they were talking about CSS shapes. That wasn't like the idea, the thing that entered my mind when I saw that. So I wasn't sure what they were referring to at the time. So I'm wondering if people knew exactly what it was when they answered the survey. And maybe there was a way. I was going through it kind of fast. But yeah, so CSS shapes can be applied to floating elements. So you're doing, which is exactly what they mentioned right there with the shape outside, which I have videos on, especially my video on Bride's channel, where I sort of dove a little bit deeper on that. Object fit, this is great that more people are using it. Such a good property. Clip path too. Now that one of the problems with clip path was just browser support, but now that that's starting to get better, it's good that more people are using it. It's almost like the same amount of people don't really know it exists, just more people that knew about it are starting to use it. Masking, clipping mask. I mean, isn't clip path sort of like clipping? But hiding visual elements, yeah, it makes sense to me. Blend modes. People aren't using blend modes. I think it's because it's a little bit specific, but I'm actually surprised how many people have never heard of blend modes being part of CSS. Get an expert and you're saying you don't know, I don't know. Filters and effects. This makes sense just because with SVGs and everything else, it's the different filters and stuff you can use. Actually, I'm surprised this is so low and people know about filters. Or is it because it's filters and effects? But I'm thinking like, yeah, I think they meant like the filters, the effects you're using with filters. Anyway, backdrop filter, that makes sense that not as many people know about it. This is a cool one, but again, I think browser support's not fully there yet, is it? I like backdrop filter. It's a little clunky to use though from my experience. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Backdrop filter. Firefox is behind a flag still. That's a bit of a shame. It's not so bad though. If we get Firefox on board, it's unusual for Firefox to be behind, but if we can get Firefox up there, that'd be better. Interactions. Scroll snap. It's growing fast. That's cool. Over scroll behavior. That does, yeah. I mean, this makes sense that people, it's not things you'd be using too much, and you actually want to be really careful with these as well. You'd sort of expect the number here and here to be very similar, in my opinion, but it makes sense that more people know about scroll snap than over scroll behavior specifically. Overflow anchor. I mean, these are all coming into like the same type of area. Touch actions, pointer events. And people use pointer events, especially to do like a pointer event none, so you can click through something. That's probably where most people know about pointer events. Typography, font face, that makes sense. Line breaking properties. Cool. I'm glad that people know about it and are using it. Font variant, that makes sense. We don't use font variant a lot. I should look into that a little bit. Because it's cool. First letter, or initial letter, I should say. It's under, what, did they make a typo or is it supposed to be? Yeah, they made a little typo there. Yeah, I mean, that's a cool property. It's nice, but it's a bit fringe, so I get why no one's using that. Again, you get into the more fringy typography things. I get why people aren't really using them or even aware of them. That's cool. The line clamp is cool, but again, it's not widely enough supported for that to really be gaining traction. Animations, I think, will be, people know about transitions and they tend to use them. Transforms. I mean, if you're using a transform, you're probably using a transition. So I'm a little surprised that these numbers aren't almost, well, they're almost identical, to be fair. Animations make sense. Perspective. And again, as I said before, when we saw like those other things, it makes sense that people aren't using this as much just because we don't do lots of 3D stuff. This is a bit of a shame. I wish these were higher. I'm glad, 50% of people not even knowing about prefers reduced motion or prefers color scheme is a little bit sad. I'm actually surprised that more people know about prefers color scheme over prefers reduced motion. And I think it just goes to show that people like setting a color theme and, a light or dark theme and are less worried about this, when really I think we should be more worried about this one, to be honest. And this I understand completely, because this is a little bit fringe, because it's all about the output device. So like, are you on an output device that has limited color output, pretty much, I think is when you'd want to use that. I have never used it. So nice to see. I'm super happy that variables are growing in popularity. That's off like really, really good. Nice to see that. Supports to slowly. More people don't know about it. I think this is just a cause of, like, anytime more people don't know about it, I think it's just a cause of more people having answered the survey. But again, this is, people complain about things when you can't support features, but there's always ways of building fallbacks. This contain CSS property allows an author to indicate that an element and its contents are as much as possible independent. Oh, this is like I know this. You can do like contain, yeah, okay, I know what it is. It's only in Chrome right now though, right? Yeah, I know what it is. I get, okay. Yeah, there's performance benefits there. And yeah, this makes sense that there's not a lot there. Contain, let's go check it out actually. What contain? Oh, it's actually, okay. I thought it was only in Chrome for some reason. Maybe it was Chrome who started it, and then I guess other ones have come on board. So it's not great browser support, but it's not terrible. It wouldn't hurt. Like this is one where it's progressive enhancement because, so let's just look it up, CSS contain really fast. So you can do like contain none, contain strict, content size, layout, style, and paint. And it's pretty much to say that something, like if you're going to be animating something and you don't want it to repaint the whole page when that thing is moving around, you can use stuff in here. So like usually be paint. So indicates that the descendants of an element don't display outside its bounds. So it's never leaving, like you're animating something, but it's only animating within that area. The containing, if the containing box is off screen, the browser does not need to paint its contents. They must be Anyway, it's a way to try and boost performance if you're having performance issues. My understanding of it too is that you shouldn't use it unless you really have to. Like you shouldn't rely on this for performance. Is an important thing along the way, but I need to learn more about it as well. Wheel change, good that more people are learning about it and knowing about it. I should do a video on wheel change, but it's pretty much to let browsers know that something, you know, if you have a transition on a button, like you're going to transition the background color on a button, that you can say wheel change. You can use the wheel change property to let it know that things could change there, and so it can optimize before it changes instead of waiting to that exact moment. Calc, of course, everybody's using Calc. CSS Houdini, I'm surprised nobody's, that makes sense to me. I'm in this one. I know what it is, but I haven't used it. Comparison function. What's a C? They didn't even give us like a description of what it is. Comparison, is this like min, max, and clamp? It is. I've used it. Cool. So I'm in that one. So yeah, I think min, max, and clamp are amazing. I'm wondering if 47% of people have really used it. Just when I'm looking at some of the other numbers of some other stuff, I'd be surprised. Like maybe they're thinking it's something else. Maybe it's actually 47%, in which case that's really, really cool and awesome that that many people are getting into it. This one I'm really interested about, units and selectors. Which of these units have you used? Everybody's used pixels, percentage. Okay, this, guys, this is a travesty that more people have used viewport units than M and Rem. I'm glad these are pretty high. I think anybody who's learned CSS has used pixels. So like this is, which of these have you used, period? So like everybody has used pixels. But why are you using viewport units if you don't use M and Rem? These should be a lot higher. And I guess some people have been doing some print stuff. If it's heard of, like I bet you these would be a bit higher. But any of a CH actually, come on guys, let's start using CH. I have a video on that one to get that one up higher. But other than that, points, centimeters, millimeters, inches, X is another one that the browser support's not there for it, but I'm looking forward to X being a thing. But you know, the points, centimeters, millimeters, and inches, only use that if you're doing a print style sheet. Pseudo-elements before and after. Interesting that they're not exactly tied. Placeholder, selection. That makes sense to me. Marker is really cool. That's them. If you have like a list and you want to change the color of the elements in your list, just gained support recently in Chrome, probably like a month or 2 months ago. And it's already in Firefox. And it's one of the ones, if the dot doesn't change colors, it's not the end of the world. And backdrop, I haven't even used that. No idea. Seems familiar, but I don't remember what it is. Which of these combinations have you used? Descend, I mean, that pretty much makes sense to me. Exactly how I see it. So that makes sense. If you don't know about any of these, I do have a video on that as well. Which of these structured related CSS selectors have you used? First child, nth child, last child, not being high is good. Wasn't there a lot of people saying they use custom properties? But only 63%. 1 second here. Features. Let's open this up in a new tab. It was it under other? So 75% of people have said they use custom properties, but only 63% said they've used root. I know you don't have to declare custom properties on the root, so it's perfectly possible that this is, but I think there's a little disconnect there. First of what? Oh, first of type. I was thinking like typography. I was trying to come up with a bigger word. First of type, okay. Last of type, okay, I mean, oh, only child is cool. That makes sense. And is like brand new. And again, browser support. So this makes sense to me, pretty much how it is, except you'd expect root to be higher since more people are saying they use custom properties. Attributes. Which of these attributes have you used? Again, my video that I talked about before goes into this as well. That makes sense to me. Exactly how I see it. So nothing too complicated there. Which of these links and URL related selectors have you used? That makes sense to me. Local link, I didn't even know about. Cool. I should explore that a little bit. Interaction. Which of these interaction CSS selectors have you used? That makes sense to me completely. Form controls. Checked, enabled, we'll just... Surprise placeholder shown is so low. Within this one's a cool one too, in range, out of range. I like that. But I guess, you know, that makes sense for forms. I think that makes sense. People don't know about all the ones that we have there. Okay, what's the satisfaction versus usage? This chart shows each technology's satisfaction ratio over its total user count. It can be divided into 4 quadrants: assess, low usage, high satisfaction. So that's here. People like it, but not a lot of people are using it. So, you know, things that could be picked up on, things you're going to be getting into. Adopt is high usage, high satisfaction. Down here is low usage and low satisfaction. You don't want to be down there. Oh, foundation, what happened to you? Oh no. And analyze high loose usage, but low satisfaction. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Okay. Cube, aha, there's Cube. I know I have videos I promised on that. It's for something brand new. The fact that it's in assess is pretty good. There's high satisfaction, which is good, but low usage. That makes sense to me. Very low usage, but that's fine. CSS modules, I thought actually post CSS is up here. That makes sense. Sass, people love Sass and know about Sass. Makes sense. BEM, I'm actually surprised with how high it's doing. Good job, BEM. A few things in here that surprised me. Foundation being so hated on actually surprised me, and less too. I'm surprised. I honestly thought less would be more over here. I didn't realize that people who use less don't really like it that much. I thought you would be using it because you like it. That's interesting. I'm really surprised that Foundation is so far down in the avoid. Like Bootstrap here being between these doesn't surprise me at all. This is to be expected. That people are sort of not so hot on it. A lot of people using it, and then it's, do people like it or not? Some people probably really love it, and other people really hate it, but they're stuck using it, so it falls pretty much in the middle. I'm surprised Skeleton was. I remember seeing it in there. I was like, oh, cool. I was surprised to see it in there. So many things just all grouped in here because there's all this stuff coming up. But I mean, even Bulma, I'm surprised isn't more. Tailwind, high usage. No, high satisfaction. I thought, just based on like everything I see, maybe it's the circles I hang out on and all the people asking me questions on it, I thought Tailwind would definitely be pushed up into this world. I get that it's below post CSS just because it hasn't been around as long, but I thought it would be higher. I'll be keeping an eye on things here. This is something I would love to see, sort of a comparison this year to next year. So is this just satisfaction, interest, usage, and awareness? Satisfaction, or we're on satisfaction. I want satisfaction. So post CSS is about the same. Sass has gone down too. That's fine. Stylus, I'm really surprised here. Or the satisfaction, I didn't realize people didn't like less. Even, well, Stylus is dropping down there, but I'm surprised less is just people aren't happy with it. People are still interested in Sass, post CSS. Usage. Post CSS is above Sass. I mean, they're not the same thing though. I'm certain. Yeah, I wouldn't really. Well, I get it why they group them all. Everybody knows about everybody. 100% people knew about Sass, so that makes sense. Overall experience over time. I mean, Sass is pretty steady. Less in people are less interested or would not use it is growing. And the same with stylus. I mean, yeah, I see why. Positive, negative. I'm not going to worry too much. I'm not going to go through too much on this. We talked about it. Other tools, styled components. Sass is here again. Was it SCSS up here? I wonder why Sass got fitted in twice. Under freeform. People, I guess 90 people didn't see it was part of the original one. I don't know. Auto prefixer. Anyway. Overall happiness. Let's go to the next. So frameworks. This really interests me. So people love Tailwind. That doesn't surprise me with all the people talking about it. What I'm more interested, I want to see this. This is what I'm interested in. So people are still are even more interested in Tailwind. Bulma's dropping a little bit. Skeleton's been around for a while. That's why I was surprised to see it on there. The bootstrap's fallen. Or it's not falling. It was always at the bottom. People aren't interested in it. They just know about it already. And there's a few Tachyons I know. Tachyons took a big hit. Wow. Some interesting little shuffles around here, but nothing like all of a sudden. This is when you could look at like this interest one and just see if something went like last year from here to all of a sudden like super high. See, everybody knows about Bootstrap. See, there you go. Awareness. Like, look at that Tailwind just taking off. And less people for... Actually, Foundation's very similar. It's just other things have overtaken it pretty much. So nothing too surprising there. And still, Bootstrap has super high, you know, the interest is all the way at the bottom, but usage is really high for Bootstrap. And Material, CSS, and Foundation. Tailwind's still behind Foundation. That actually surprises me. Interesting. Interesting. CSS methodologies. Whoa, interesting. Okay, I thought that was a bigger shift, but the percentages are almost the same. I'm wondering if this is, well, whatever. I think that's just a fragment. That's interesting though. That's satisfaction. What about interest? Atomic is above still. No, they were before too. Usage. More people. That's weird that people, I mean, they're tied for satisfaction, but it's kind of interesting that like Atomic seems, what about awareness? With like super high awareness, super high interest, you'd expect this to be a little bit higher. That does make me think of like Tailwind a little bit though, right? Because Tailwind is sort of like Atomic CSS in a way. And Cube is there on awareness. What about interest? That makes sense to me. And CSS in JS. Less people into emotion, not a big drop though. And even like here, style JSX actually gained 1%, but it's just other stuff is ahead of it. Not really my world, so I'm not gonna just CSS modules sticking around at the top for everything and styled components makes complete sense to me. So let's go to other tools. StyleLint, Purge CSS, Purify, not too, a lot of people using Prettier, Auto Prefixer. I mean, it's not tons, I mean, Sass and Post CSS getting written in. Most people on VS Code, I don't think that's a surprise. Actually, I'm surprised WebStorm is number 2. That does a bit of a surprise. Oh, and poor Adam is dying off. I loved Adam, but I use VS Code now too. Sublime hanging on. Other text editors, PHP Storm doing well. Notepad++ is still hanging in there. Some write-ins for VS Code. Brackets, some write-ins. Coda hanging in on there. There's some write-ins for Vim, but I saw Vim was up here too. Browsers, everybody's on Chrome, some on Firefox. I mean, that's exactly what you'd sort of expect, right? Environments. Everyone's testing in Chrome. Also, you know, sort of to be expected. Something like that, yeah. I mean, come on, guys. If you're testing, like, shouldn't these be... Are they like if you're testing desktop and then does this mean that they're doing a mobile only, still test it on a phone? Everybody has a phone. There's no excuse not to test on a phone. Unless of course you're building something that's like a desktop web app or something, you know. Well, I feel bad for you. Print styles, yeah. I know I could do it, but I pretty much never have done it. Oof. CSS for emails. Again, I feel bad for those people. Resources, CSS Tricks and Dev2, Smashing Magazine, CodeDrops, A List Apart, David Walsh, nice. CSS Weekly, Sidebar, Hey Designer, cool. That makes sense to me. And CSS Tricks being at the top makes a lot of sense. Medium, oh nice, Piccalilli. Good. Nice for Andy. CodePen making it in there. Reddit, Twitter. Sarah made it in 13 write-ins. And Leo too. Leo Viru. Nice. Some people writing in some people. That's awesome. Sites. See, for CSS, I think that for other languages, Stack Overflow is great. I really think the MDM is better than Stack Overflow for CSS because CSS tends to be less encapsulated. So a lot of the, with JavaScript, you're talking more about like localized everything, whereas with JavaScript, with CSS, a lot of the time, the things we're looking at, like you change one thing and it might change other things, right? And you can have these other effects. So I still do end up on Stack Overflow sometimes as well, but West Boss, nice. A lot of people heading over to West Boss to get some information. W3, I know it gets a lot of crap. I just find it's not like, I'd rather use MDM because I get more information out of it. Whereas W3, it used to be really bad. I think it's improved, but it just doesn't really tell you enough of how things work. And other sites. YouTube obviously up high. CSS Tricks again getting some write-ins. Oh, Scrimba making the list. My name is on here. Guys, I love you. How did I make it onto there? Thank you guys so much. I'm glad. That makes me feel so good. I honestly didn't know I was on here. That just made my day. You're all the best. Thank you so much. Podcast, this is interesting. Syntax, yes. Shop Talk Show, yes. CSS Podcast. If you do not know about this, go and check out the CSS Podcast. It's the first podcast I've ever listened to. It's just called CSS Podcast. Like, let's go. CSS Podcast. It's the first podcast I've listened to where they're teaching you something. It's audio only, and it's just gold. Like, especially CSS, which is such a visual language. I don't know how they do it, but like, I have so much respect for what they do. It's such a good little, they're not too long, the episodes. They talk about one subject and they just knock it out of the park. Such a good little podcast. Yeah, these, I mean, if you don't know Una already, so here it's Una and Adam, and they're knocking it out of the park with what they're doing here. Really good stuff. The Web Ahead, the big web show, that's with what's his name? He hasn't put out a new episode in a long time. Oh, I can't believe I forget his name. Web Ahead, Style Guide Podcast, Non-Breaking Space Show. I have to check some of these out. I think we all know Syntax and the Shop Talk Show. I love Shop Talk Show. That's probably my number one that I go to for web stuff. And here's the write-ins for podcasts, web standards, the Ladybug podcast, yeah. Front-end happy hour, yes. Don't know about all these, so I have some looking up to do, but cool, nice. Opinions. CSS is easy to learn. Strongly agree is taking a big nosedive. Interesting. Agree is gone up though. So more people are just going to agree and the rest has sort of stayed the same. Disagree is growing a little bit. I definitely think that it's not difficult, but not easy either. Yeah. Is it evolving too slowly? Neutral. Disagree. Strongly disagree. I fall more. I think it's evolving at the right pace right now. Part of its browser, this is where you wish the browsers would just speed up a little bit. Utility class should be avoided. Strongly disagree and disagree are growing. That makes sense to me. I think they shouldn't be avoided. I think they're good. Interesting that agree is also like being a bit of a gulf depending on what people prefer, I guess. I don't think everything should be a utility class, but I think that, well, some like text, large text, I think is fine. I don't use center so much, but I don't think all utility classes should be avoided. But I like the whole atomic CSS and the like Tailwind and stuff. Parts of it get annoying. Selector nesting should be avoided. That makes sense based on what I know. See how it disagrees actually growing. That's sort of where I fall into too. I think you can do it, but you just want to be careful. CSS is a programming language. Strongly agree shrunk a little bit, but agree growing makes me happy. We're telling a computer what to do, right? This doesn't surprise me though, that people, well, strongly disagree also shrunk a lot, but disagree grew. But that's about what, actually, I'm surprised that I was expecting more to be on the disagree than agree side on that one. I enjoy writing CSS. That makes me happy. People like writing CSS. That's good. You hear so much negativity, especially on Twitter, toward it, that I'm glad that most people seem to enjoy it. Or maybe it's just the type of people who would reply to this survey, so maybe it's a little bit biased. And most people are happy or very happy or neutral. That's great. People are not angry with CSS. But again, this could be biased based on who's answering the survey. Oh wait, this is web technologies in general and then in CSS, so more or less the same. A little bit more unhappy or neutrality towards CSS, but that's all right. What's missing? Container queries, of course. Parent selector, of course. Nesting. Oh, nesting. I don't think we need nesting in native CSS. Doesn't bother me. Functions too. Subgrid, yeah, definitely. There's more stuff coming to animation, like especially with motion path and stuff. There's some cool stuff coming there. Has selector, that's an interesting idea. Masonry layout, it's here, sort of. Centering, come on guys, we can center now. Nothing about centering anymore. Please, that's over and done with years ago. But yeah, container queries 100% and parent selectors would be super nice. One reason that both of these are an issue is the recursiveness that can happen based on those selectors. So that could be a while. I think there's some things in the works for container queries though. Things that stood out this year we still don't have, or can I click on it? Do I have to guess and then I click? Awarded to the feature with the largest year-over-year have used progression. Grid? Yeah! Most adopted technology would use again. Tailwind. Runner-up, object fit, nice, and variables. Good, good. And atomic CSS and CSS modules, not surprised. Actually, I'm surprised that gained so much, but I guess that goes a little bit with Tailwind. Highest satisfaction. Technology SAS? No. Tailwind? Post CSS. Ah, nice. Tailwind wasn't far behind though. And highest interest. The technology developers are most interested in learning. I just went through everything. Can I get it? Can I get it? I have no idea at all. Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And okay. Yeah, I get it. Most write-ins. Awarded to the item with the most write-in answers. Oh, PHP Storm for the... Okay, I get it. Cool. Oh, Front-End Master is getting a whole bunch of love there too. Cool. Thank you for coming along on that ride with me. I thought it was really interesting. There were some good things in there. I guess a lot of things that we should expect. I'm happy to see things like Grid starting to gain popularity though. I've been a lot, I'm sort of tired of the whole, I can't use Grid because of browser support. And I guess a lot of people are getting past that now, which makes me feel very good. And so yeah, I'd like to know what you think of it, or is there anything from that stood out to you? Leave a comment down below. If there's a few things there that I didn't know what they are, if I got anything wrong when I was talking about it, also, like the exclusions or something like that, let me know down in the comments as well. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. This was a little bonus video. I don't usually do videos like this, but I saw it and I was going to go through it anyway, so I thought I'd go through it with you because why not? And yeah, if you haven't done the survey, we can't do it now, but go down to that link down below, put in your email address, so when 2021 rolls around, you can take part in the survey, because I think the more people that are taking part in this, the better. I do think there was a slight skewage towards people that like CSS, obviously. It would have been nice to get a bit more input, I think, from people that don't like CSS, maybe. And it might have skewed the results a little bit. But I do think overall I'm encouraged by what I was seeing there, except for all the love for Tailwind, because it just means more people are going to be asking me if I use it or not. Not that there's anything wrong with Tailwind, but just I get that question like all the time now. So I hope you enjoyed going through it with me. And again, if you saw anything interesting or if I got anything wrong, please let me know down below. A big thank you to all my patrons for all their support each and every month. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.